that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die? And can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
I live in Laguna Hills, California, and I've lived down here for about 3 years. I grew up in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and I've lived all over the place, traveled all over the world, moved to California 3 times actually, lived in the Bay Area, and this is my second time living down here, and I love it.
The Bay Area, that would be Marin County?
I was in Berkeley area, like Berkeley, Oakland, and then that was the first time I lived in California, and now I live in Orange County, and yeah, that's probably going to be my home base for a long time.
Right, yeah. I've been to the Bay Area. I do, it is a lovely place. I've been to, spent some time in San Rafael and, Marin County and other places. It's all really nice around there. It's a nice
Yeah,
energy.
that's where I was when my channel first opened, and I first started doing readings for people, started channeling books. It all kind of blossomed when I was living in that area.
Interesting. Now, wasn't it 17 that you, well, actually, it was 16, I believe, where you were, you were making notes, if I've got this right, that, you felt that there was something opening within you, that what you would call channeling now. And at 17, you started to practice channeling.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that just a few weeks ago. I actually came across a book in the library. I was a big reader. I loved spending hours in the library, privately researching my own interests. And I got onto these spiritual topics, and I came across a book that was about how to contact your spiritual guide. In hindsight, it really wasn't a very good book. It didn't feel like it was very highly attuned, high vibrational information, but there were still instructions there, and I decided to give it a go. And I felt something. I absolutely felt something was trying to get in contact with me as I was beginning to open that doorway. And the very first vibrational experience I had, it was a little bit scary because I couldn't see anything, didn't hear anything. I didn't know what I was getting into. I only knew that the moment I felt fear, the energy backed off. And I thought, okay, well, whoever this is, whatever this is, they respect my sovereignty, they respect my consciousness, they don't want me to be afraid. And there was no push to try to get me to do anything else. I felt like I was being given a bit of a welcome mat, though I didn't know it yet, to keep taking new steps. So it took a little while before I opened more fully and started to experience the presence of high-level spiritual guides that wanted to train me. But that started phasing in when I was 17, 18 years old, and the experience of spiritual contact that really blasted me open came from the Master Jesus first. And that's when I knew that I was being looked after by beings that I could absolutely trust in this process of integrating with a much, much wider spectrum of consciousness.
And that was around 17, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been almost 30 years that I've been on this journey now.
What is the missing pieces? Because obviously I know you up to this point today. I don't know your backstory, right? We've all got one. Do you want to just go into some of that?
Yeah, well, something really unusual happened to me as a result of this very profound awakening that happened in my teens, which is that I was given this ability to travel out of my body. It happened very easily. I would lay down to go to sleep at night, and these vibrations would come in to my body, and I would feel my second body or energetic body separate from the physical body. And I was, in the beginning, just floating there, not knowing how to control myself in this new environment. But I very quickly started asking for high-level spiritual guides to come train me, show me how to use this, how to extend consciousness, how to travel. And it just kept evolving from there. But I had this as an additional frame of reference to the things that were coming to me through my channel in the body, because I could actually go out and I could see, are there extraterrestrials visiting Earth? Are there beings observing us? Are there ascended masters? I could go and see that in an out-of-body state and know who I was contacting, know who was working with me, form agreements and have conversations, and then come back into the body and have a frame of reference on what I was contacting from in the body that very few people have. So that went on for, it's been 30 years now. And I would say that there have been some major shifts in the process. Once my channel fully opened to the Ascended Masters, that was when they were starting to ask me to focus more on being grounded in the body. I had various grounding initiations. I had a debilitating condition that I had to deal with that prevented me from having the full range of my mobility. I wasn't able to run and jump and dance and do hiking and rock climbing. I had something that was a painful condition that really slowed me down for about 8 years. And so I spent a lot more time being grounded in my body, being connected to all of the fears about being grounded. And I discovered that there are a lot of people that are coming in as emissaries of light that carry around some of this fear of fully embodying the light, being seen, being recognized, because of the long history of persecution that has taken place on the planet when emissaries of light have tried to bring light into times of darkness. So I had to do a lot of inner clearing work to clear all that stuff out and be able to keep grounding the spiritual current of my channel so that all of these different masters and divine beings could be able to come and give their teachings through me.
And obviously you go by Saryon Michael White. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there was, because obviously you've been on my other talk show before, the More Show, and I think you mentioned it on that was given to you by, well, it was at Mount Shasta, wasn't it? And there was a channeler at Mount Shasta where you had a number of sessions with, and that name was channeled for you. Is that right?
Well, I would tell it a little bit differently. The man who received that name for me is a living master. He was actually channeling the Ascended Masters in a way that is deeper and more profound than a lot of people channel the masters. He was able to really physically presence the masters into the room, and they were coming through his body, and it's like his whole field, his demeanor, his voice would completely morph into the consciousness and the presence of those masters. It's a deeper level of channeling that is really very rare. And he was doing that publicly and channeling them for some time before he moved on into other levels of his ministry. He became enlightened and has had a ministry as an enlightened being. His name is Louis Dordempree, and he's actually been overlighting and training me into higher levels of my channeling process as well. So he channeled and received that name for me, which was a name that I had had before in other lifetimes. It's an angelic name, and it was the name that anchored in my channelship. So he said, this is the name that the Ascended Masters know you by. And the very year that the Ascended Masters came to me to open the School of Manifestation, which is an extension of their inner plane educational work for humanity, coming through me as a channel, that was the moment when the name Saryon activated in my consciousness. It was like an alchemical tool that opened up my connection to the masters, and suddenly I heard all of the masters calling me by that name.
Okay, interesting. And what is it that you channel then?
Well, there is quite an extensive body of work that has come through now. There's a whole sequence of courses that I would describe each one as a process of integration. There is a course for integrating training with the Ascended Masters. There's a course for integrating higher levels of manifestation energy. There's a course for integrating with the consciousness of the Arcturians, some of the most highly evolved extraterrestrial light-bearing energies in the galaxy. There's a course for integrating the consciousness of the angels. So these are all integration processes. They are designed to produce a mental and emotional shift and an integration with the energy of some of the beings that want to train us and that have been approved by our own higher selves to be able to give these kinds of trainings. So basically all of the trainings that I do are designed to connect a person to the same resource that is training me. It's not really about me being in the teaching role as much as it is about me being in a facilitator role to help people learn how to receive from these guides and Ascended Master teachers on their own.
So let's go into that then. So your website is?
Saryon.com is the main website. I've got a few other satellites of that, but pretty much everything can be found at Saryon.com.
And this is where the School of Manifestation is?
Yes. The schoolofmanifestation.com pretty much points to another page on that same website. But yes, everything is currently hosted there. And there's been a kind of an evolution that has taken place with my work since the pandemic started. You know, we had our first interview back before the pandemic. You know, we didn't know it was going to go that way. It's almost 3 years ago. And when the pandemic hit, I was thinking about all these people that were staying home and that were like stuck at home in their houses. And I thought, you know, maybe I'll do something for all of those people that would love to learn how to channel. So I created a free Learning to Channel course, which is available on my website for people that subscribe. And I got a lot of really good feedback for it. It's a pretty complete teaching for something that is a beginner's course. It's very comprehensive. And it really lays out not just the basic information you need to open as a channel, but it kind of gives you an understanding of the pathway and the process that unfolds. Probably one of the most important keys that can help a person to open their channels to their guides is to understand more about how committed your guides are to your spiritual growth. And that when you start to get more serious about your spiritual growth, it creates a stronger frequency match. So if you really want to embark on a deeper process of self-purification to clean out all of the distortions, the false beliefs, the unforgiveness, the ways in which you're getting in your own way and holding yourself back, the pain, the trauma, when you want to really get clear of that and become a pure vessel for the divine, even if that is not about becoming a channel per se. But when you really want to purify yourself, that's what draws in the influence and the support of your spiritual team to help you go to other levels of that healing process, so that you can fulfill your dreams, so that you can fulfill the dreams that the divine is wanting to manifest through you. And that's a lot of what I teach, is the various aspects of that process.
Right, but obviously that process that people are going through, because you mentioned a few of them there, right? Really great stuff you just mentioned there, which is what we all suffer from sometimes, right? Because of just having the human experience here, right? Um,
Yeah.
Surely that's there to teach us something. So, but what you're saying as well is it's also a blockage for us to move on to what we really could be a much bigger potential, which we know that's calling us. But these things, you're kind of saying get in the way there, but I'm kind of saying, yeah, but aren't they part of our growth?
Well, absolutely. I would say, to put it simply, there are a lot of things that might seem to be working against you in your life, or things that have happened to you that feels like that was a setback. I was doing fine. I came to this world with dreams and things that I wanted to fulfill and create in life, but then this happened or that happened. And, we tend to think that, the abuses we experienced or the traumas, that those were all things that were working against the fulfillment of our life's potential. And when you get into this kind of self purification process and you start working with your spiritual guides and awakening to higher levels of consciousness, it all gets flipped around. All of the things that seemed like they were working against you, you realize were there to accelerate you in other ways. When you really completely take victim consciousness out of it and you just start looking for the gift, how were these things actually blessing me and helping me to see some way in which I was thwarting myself through various patterns of consciousness that needed to be addressed, and that this thing that happened to me was bringing to light. So there's a really deep level of self-examination that starts to get imprinted through working with guides, and it just keeps going deeper and deeper all the time.
So just remind us then the course for that, or is that a number of courses? How is that broken down
Yeah,
there?
well, okay, so here's what I did. I created the free Learning to Channel course, and then I took all of this whole library of courses that I created with the Ascended Masters that I channeled, and I made them all available for a low cost 3-month library pass. So you could just pay a small fee and get access to the whole library for 3 months, and take whatever course you want. It's all downloadable. You can do them in any order. Some people go through them very quickly because they're just absorbing the content and loving the acceleration. Some people want to take a little more time with it. But either way, that is at a lower cost than it ever has been. And what I also just got the inspiration to create, it'll probably be coming out when this airs, is a new kind of channeling summit. It's a very short project. Now, a lot of summits, they might have really extensive series of long interviews. In this case, I am curating short teachings, like 1 to 3 minutes, from a lot of different channelers that I know, sharing their best advice about the process of opening a channel. And we're putting that together in a very short summit. Yeah. And the idea is to give somebody a mental shift in consciousness, to really change their framework of consciousness in a way that supports the development of their relationship with their guides in, like, say, an hour to an hour and a half, with contributions from many different people that have been doing this for a long time. That's the idea. And it'll be the first of many, I predict. I only am working with this one idea now, but I have a feeling we're going to be doing some more of these. And it's going to be a similar process of creating a very powerful mental shift in consciousness around some area of integration. I did all these courses. Like, for example, there was a course on how to get in tune with the hidden realities of nature and the nature spirits. That's a whole course. That's probably at least 6, 7, 8 hours of material. And what I'm probably going to do next is have a group of people sharing their best keys, their best insights to create a short, very power packed summit of ideas that give you many different frames of reference to how to move forward with that type of integration.
That is a fantastic idea. I mean, look, I've interviewed, you're now my, over 100th, channeler that I've interviewed for this docu-series, right? So there's a plethora of, people for you to share this information, share their keys with. I can assure you that. And I keep meeting new channelers all the time, and it just, amazes me just how many people there are out there doing. And I'm sure, you'd be picky, and we're going to get into discernment just a bit later on in this conversation, right?
Yeah.
But I love the idea where you've broken down the courses, and as you were saying, when I asked you, how does, there's so many things that people come to you with that they feel that, that, or you feel that could be stopping them. Even forgiveness, right? Well, you mentioned that earlier on. You mentioned a load of great stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I love the way that you've cut the courses down so that, depending on what they feel more pulled to right now, that they want to heal the most, that they can go to that particular that course that they feel that will get them that acceleration. Fantastic, right?
Right.
And that would only come from channeled information. Do you know what I mean? Just to think like that. But I mean, no, well, maybe not, but it's great anyway, right? But forgiveness, that's a big one, isn't it? Because you got to be really, I mean, you can say you want to forgive, but I'm tending to feel and think that, and maybe this is because this is my own journey, that forgiveness sometimes, it takes time. And maybe you've got to go through a few things before you can really, truly get there. You can say, I forgive, but do we really mean it sometimes?
Well, yeah, that's a very good point. There is a kind of a surface level of forgiveness that maybe is more akin to kind of just moving on. Like, okay, I've moved on. I want to focus on something else. But you're right. A lot of time it's not complete forgiveness. And the lack of complete forgiveness does far more to hold ourselves back than it does to anything else. Usually when we're not forgiving somebody, it's because we are holding them in contempt as if we are doing something to them that they deserve. But it's actually a way that we hold ourselves in the past, and our energy gets tied up and bogged down in the past. So when you really do deeper level forgiveness work, it's really about reclaiming the energy of your own soul that has been sort of misappropriated or misguidedly directed along the lines of being overly invested in the past, overly invested in your pain story. So yeah, deeper level forgiveness work is really important. And I would also say that we're moving into this really crazy time when we've already seen through the way that the pandemic started, and there was a run on different resources, and suddenly the store shelves were all empty for a little while, and it was kind of scary. There was a lot of panic. I remember actually when the shutdown happened, I could feel the waves of fear and panic rippling through the collective before there was a run on all of these, like toilet paper and stuff like that. You could feel it coming. And the thing is that we are going to face difficult times. There are going to be times when the physical resources and supply chains are disrupted in various ways, like we're already seeing. But what we need to remember is that the most important resource that we have is each other. And so, not everyone is going to be able to create some big storehouse of supplies, hidden in the basement, waiting for, the apocalypse. Not that we ever would need to operate that way, but still, if we can start to think about the resource of human energy and human relationships and friendship and the potential for synergy in human consciousness, that is a very, very powerful thing right now, where the light that is increasing in the world is creating the possibility for deeper levels of connection between one person's presence and another person's presence. And when we spend time really cultivating relationships and practicing being present with each other, the resource of human energy and the resource of community can become so strong that it can withstand anything. it can withstand any kind of disruption.
I almost want to say, um, and I know we spoke about this off air as well, just briefly. In regards to the times that we live in right now, we just bring it, to where we are now. So we've gone through the pandemic. We're now there's now a obviously an ongoing war in the Ukraine, and it's absolutely horrific, and it's genocide, and it's war crimes, and it's the worst of humanity right now. Many, many,
Yeah,
many people have died, and many will continue to die from it. And this could lead on to an escalation which I feel it will resolve, but I feel that we live in a time of great change, and the pandemic, this war here, this is all the beginning of that great change, because there's a change that needs to go through. We are going through an ascension, if you want to call it that.
yes,
We are going through a time, I feel, where it's like, where is the love? Where
right.
is the love? I mean, we can talk and we can get you to channel very shortly and bring through all this wonderful channeled information. Where's the love, man? Where is the love between the politicians?
Yeah.
Regardless of being human to human, where is that love? It's absolutely gone, isn't it? In a sense, and that I want to say on top of this as well is you've mentioned this before about the conflicts outside our conflicts really that are going on maybe elsewhere in an unknown reality.
Yeah, wow. There's a couple of different really major topics there to explore. I want to touch on all of it. So, first of all, when it comes to the conflicts that are taking place in Ukraine and in other parts of the world, and let's not forget that there's still a humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan that's continuing to unfold. I was watching documentaries about that just uh, a week or so ago, and just broke my heart open what's still happening there as well. The thing about, if we just focus in on the topic of war, regardless of where it is, right now, the Ukraine war, or any war that's going on, it really reflects something inside of us. We have to stop thinking about what is happening in the world is happening outside of us, and start to see it all as a reflection of something happening inside of us. And then we have to look at, to what degree am I enabling this? Is this a reflection of something in my consciousness? Am I at war with some part of humanity or the world, or God, or divine will, or being in a body, or
War
whatever it
myself.
is, or myself? Yeah, I mean, people are at war with all kinds of things. Or I meet people all the time that are at war with their own body image. You know, like, where are we? What are we at war with? And then at the same time, maybe you're not at war with anything per se, in a way that really is contributing to the manifestation of an actual war, which it is a manifestation of the collective. It is not something that is only happening between Ukraine and Russia, or between Russia and the West. It is a mirror for something much larger inside our consciousness. And that's actually a very big part of how it is being resolved. And it is being resolved. There's resolution work taking place, because before the war happened, before it manifested, there has been a growing and strengthening grid of peace consciousness, or a web, if you will, of all of the people whose hearts are married to the new emerging peace
Even this
consciousness.
conversation, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. So that's one thing. We could go really deep into that topic, but I want to come over to something else you were saying. Where's the love? Where's the love in our, political leaders? Um, our political leaders, all of them, to one degree or another, have various structures that are in the way of them really coming from their heart space. And even you just look at it, America. America is like Atlantis reincarnated. Reincarnated. America has a tremendous amount of that energy of the mind and its mental goals of manifestation, which come first. And I would also say that according to the guides, there's a tremendous amount of greed and corruption that is being rooted out. We can't think of greed and corruption as only being systemic either. Yes, it is systemic. At the same time, anything systemic is also still a reflection of what's inside of us. So the way that we change is by taking stock of where our own energy is. Where is there greed inside of us? How can we uh, remove that from our consciousness first, heal ourselves, and then maybe start to be an example of generosity, of selfless service, things like that in our lives. That's something that I strive to model myself in various ways. I volunteer for charities. I donate more than 10% of my income to charity. I strive to practice the things that I would want to see our leaders, practicing as well. So, I think that's very important. But if we want to come to really the realm of the guides, probably one of the most exciting, profound, beautiful spiritual things that I could share, which I'm grateful to have this opportunity to do this with you and with your audience, is that over the past year, something really interesting started happening. Uh, I noticed an opening taking place that affected my channel. Uh, Last summer, it was 2021, it was around June, July, and I had just channeled and written a story that is going to be published by Sacred Stories in their Common Sentience series. In fact, I'll show you, this is the first book of the series that just came out. This is called Animals.
Yes,
It's about
I've
divine.
interviewed him. Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. So Stephen Farmer. Yeah. Well, one of my stories is in the book, and a number of my stories are going to be in probably about like six at least, incarnations of that series. And I had just finished writing one for the Ancestors book, and it's like that's what the guides, these various Native American ancestors, took notice of. They saw what I was writing and they wanted to get involved. And they contacted me as a channel. And the first guide that came through that spoke about this, it's not the first Native American guide I've worked with because I've worked with a number of them, but Chief Big Bear came in and he started talking about this portal that was beginning to open that was allowing this lodge of Native American master elders and all of these different Native American healers and other indigenous guardian spirits from other cultures to begin performing these very profound healing ceremonies to cleanse the earth and cleanse humanity of certain ways in which we had been imprinted by and carried fear and greed in our consciousness. And they said that they were coming to help drive out the energy of greed from the human family. And these prayers and these ceremonies and these dances that they were doing in spirit were so powerful. I kept having them come in and work with my group that I channel for. I've been channeling for a group once a month since 2015. And they've been working with us quite prominently in the last year and at the retreats that I host as well. And it just keeps getting deeper. And this is just the beginning. Everything that I've channeled thus far about Chief Big Bear's messages is just planting the seeds. There is more that's coming. The portals of connection to the inner plane, realities of the spiritual guides is widening. The ability for them to do very profound healing work to support human unity and to clear away the energies of pain and trauma and suffering that have blocked us from trusting in the experience of reconnection with each other through a shared space of love and heart energy and empathy. That's getting addressed very powerfully by these inner plane healers, and it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that energy's coming in more right now because, I mean, look at the times that we live in. Do you know what I mean? I mean, if this wasn't the start of something bigger happening, And I mean, I always said to the people, the pandemic is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. This is just, yeah, whatever this is just the beginning. And my channeling always used to tell me that when I channeled back in 2014, that this was a time of great change, and it was never the end. It was never the doom and gloom, but there was a journey that we had to all take, and it wasn't going to be simply straightforward for any of us.
It's touching all of our lives. There is nobody that will be untouched by the way things are changing. And the only reason we really need things happening that really shake up and disrupt our way of life is to get our attention, to get us to start getting in tune with the way these changes are coming to us through other levels of our own beings.
Just imagine if some of the people around, and I know these people are there, but if there was more people around Putin right now, and even Putin was able to, just have the love for the just one body that was left on the street right now, covered up,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they're all playing a role, but that doesn't mean that it's not for all of us to, like as you say, go within, and also within our own lives, where is the conflict. I mean, look, with this subject, we could go on and on. I think it's a really important subject.
Well, let's expand upon what we were already talking about, the approach of seeing the reflection. With Putin, I've tuned into him, and what I see is that he is mirroring for us the extreme end of the polarity of human disconnect. Disconnect from each other, disconnect from the heart energy, disconnect from empathy. He's a mirror of that. So there's certainly lots of people that are blaming him for what's going on, and of course, he is making these choices and creating a lot of karma at the same time for himself. And but he's also playing a role that's setting up all kinds of different circumstances. There are soldiers, for example, on the Russian side, that are deserting and saying, "I don't want to have anything to do with this." And that is a profound test of courage and surrender for them to do that. There are people that are choosing a path of surrender in one way or another. For some people, the path of surrender might look like giving the cause of their life to defend their community and to fight. And for some people, it might look like walking away and saying, "I'm not going to participate in this." It looks different for different people, but these circumstances get set up in a way that allows a wide variety of people to experience a wide variety of different learning paths. Setting that aside, though, he represents the disconnect that exists inside of humanity. And if we really think about it, we can either relate to that energy of disconnect in the way that we see it in other people, or we might be able to see how we all, to one degree or another, have embodied a form of disconnect, not to the degree that would lead us to, create such horrific acts, but there's a kind of disconnect that I think is closer to home, where we feel protective of a more sensitive place inside of us. We feel perhaps difficulty in trusting our connection to other people. I've had a long period of time where I embodied a kind of a loner pattern and did everything on my own and didn't accept help from anybody. And it's taken me time to come out of that, to learn how to trust people with my emotions. And I'm somebody who's a fairly empathic person. My empathic gifts come into play when I'm reading people, when I'm doing sessions. But to actually share the deeper vulnerability of our hearts as a whole, their story. And so the thing that's happening on the opposite end of the spectrum with what Putin is representing is something that the Master Jesus showed me and spoke to me about prophetically in terms of an aspect of our awakening. And he said that an aspect of our awakening is an experience of falling in love with humanity, falling in love with all of the beauty in the world, falling in love with the diversity in the world, falling in love with uh, human potential and all of the ways in which people sacrifice in various ways to show up for each other and to just allow your heart to be touched by the unfoldment of that selflessness everywhere in the world as it exists, because it exists as much as there is a disconnect. So that experience of falling in love with the world, falling in love with humanity, falling in love with God, falling in love with yourself, and becoming so completely vulnerable that you are skinless, that experience is terrifying. It's terrifying because you have to face all of your fears about getting hurt again, about getting abused again, about trauma being restimulated. All of those things come up in the process of that level of letting go and surrender. And so that's why we had masters like Yeshua, Jesus, who came along to model that shift. And what he showed me is that a lot of what he did to clear away fear of that new kind of human experience, which nobody around him understood it to the degree or was willing to go there to the degree that he did. But now we have masters living in the world that are demonstrating this. I've met a number of them. They are making it easier, and every person that takes a new step makes it easier for everyone else. So the opposite end of the polarity from where Putin is this experience of falling in love with humanity. And that's where you start to find yourself meeting and connecting with these ascended master energies that are there to guide us through that process, to help us feel safe in that level of vulnerability as we begin to surrender into it.
Wouldn't that be an amazing conversation if you had sort of two opposing, politicians on either side, and just, to put that to them in some sort of, roundabout but concise way? Do you know what I mean? That's sort of to the point, but to sort of emphasize what you're saying there and what their response might be. But as you've said in this conversation, in some of their makeup, as you've channeled it to some of these people, there is greed there is other things that are stopping them from becoming this better version of themselves, or the more purest version. And maybe those things are in place because that needs to be in place for all the others to have, like me and you and everyone else, to have the experience of what that cause is, right? But that doesn't mean that that the healing can't take place. But would they be too unapproachable to that? I don't hear those conversations on the news programs happening, right? Isn't it about time that those conversations maybe happened between two people?
Well, yes. We also have to, I think, become more aware of each person's sacred power. This is one of the things that Chief Big Bear has been teaching us about. He says that there's a sacred power that is arising within us. A part of it comes from Mother Earth, and she is consciously extending that power into us so that each of us individually and more of us as an emerging unified field of group consciousness are able to channel that sacred power and use it to clear the field of anything that does not resonate and does not serve the emerging human unity. So yeah, it'd be great if we could get our politicians to actually talk on this level about what is unhealed in them and how can they embrace a larger view of human potential. That would all be great. But but they're also playing their roles to create the necessity for there to be a different kind of uprising that comes from a grassroots level. And that's usually been the case. That's usually how it goes. But this is a different kind of grassroots because this is energy coming from the earth that is starting to become discernible. This is something you can feel. There are surges of earth energy beginning to interact with our chakras and reveal to us what our chakras and our bodies are designed to do, so that we remember things about how the human body can be a conduit for love and light and sacred power, and that we can actually change the matrix.
I know there's so much that we could discuss right now, and the topics that we're covering are so deep, and they're a show on their own right now, right? And this is about your work, but this interview, but this really is an important part of your work right now. If there's any, and I'm conscious of time as well, so if there's any sort of, if you feel there's any sort of energy that's coming in that you want to talk about right now, that wants to give a message, because I think it would be important to do a little bit of channeling, because I'm sure that there's energy that wants to speak through you right now.
Yes. I'm going to do this more as a conscious channeling rather than going into a trance state, partly because it usually takes me longer than average to do it. It takes a while to get into it, but I just want to tap into the most important messages that are present. A lot of people are searching for truth. They're searching for understanding about what is happening in the world, and often people are looking at what is happening in the news through a lens of fear. We may not know that we are looking at what's happening through a lens of fear, but there's a fear of the future, fear of what the future might hold, because it looks like there are a lot of things that are getting worse. There is a way to reframe all that has occurred and is occurring when it comes to our outlook on the future. And it's not about being overly optimistic either. This is the message. The message is that there is a kind of overly optimistic view, a kind of pie in the sky view of ascension, that we're going to be able to just leap beyond this dimension in the next few decades somehow, or that certain groups of people might leave the rest behind. There are various versions of that. We'll just call that over optimism or ungrounded spirituality. There's a lot of that. At the same time, there's this fear-based vision of the future as well that's being fed in various ways. And the most grounded, most open, most surrendered stance and way of relating to all of these things is being supported and given to us from the earth herself. So Mother Earth is speaking to us very powerfully, and these various guides like Chief Big Bear and Chief Seattle and Chief White Eagle, some of the Native American guides that are coming in to be voices from these collectives of healers and masters and indigenous elders on the inner planes. They are here to support us to receive that which the earth herself is revealing to us. A lot of us are praying for help. A lot of us are sending out signals to the angelic realms, praying to God or your spiritual source, or to some prophet or master, whoever you trust as your spiritual source. But we want to keep coming back to the way in which a part of the answer is being given to us directly by the earth, or how divine manifestation energy and source consciousness is not just coming from a higher dimension through our crown chakras and meeting us there, but again, coming up and arising as a spiritual current from inside the earth to answer us there, because it is the frequency of the earth that is going to play a key role in bridging our hearts together. The context of this, the relevance of this message, relates to a fear that all of us, to some degree or another, are going to feel at some point, or an apprehension, if you will, about the reconnection process, the process of becoming reconnected to each other as a whole. There is a bridge to wholeness that is coming to us as a spirit of wholeness that stands in between us, that empowers us to gaze into each other's eyes and to see the other person as a mirror image of yourself. There's a spirit of wholeness and compassion that keeps positioning itself into the field between us to break down barriers and dispel illusions until we can see each other's oneness, and it becomes a visceral experience to our senses, inner senses and outer senses, that we are one. That is occurring. It is occurring in the world now. It is going to increase. Every time you see something happening that is catastrophic in the world, at the same time, there is more light being infused. You could think of these catastrophic events in some way as a side effect of the light coming in. And at the same time, whenever one occurs, more light comes in to address it. Either way, there are waves of light coming in. Some of these waves of light are coming from other star systems, from other advanced civilizations, from the angelic realms. But there are also waves of light and creation energy that have a unifying effect that are coming directly from source. Those waves are going to keep increasing. They will increase in frequency. They will increase in strength. They are massaging human consciousness into an alignment with source that is going to reactivate the original divine blueprint of humanity's stewardship role with the environment, with the world, and with the consciousness of all of the animals, the plants in the world. There's a synergy between us and the animals and the plants that is being restored. There's a synergy that we can begin to discover in that space between our hearts and minds. And when we start to find a focus on the synergy, there is another level of divine consciousness that can enter the conversation and can shift our communication onto a higher plane. Part of the work that is being done now is to clear the field of human language, of dualistic ways of speaking, of fear-based constructs, the use of fear to control through language. Language is being purified. There will be a time when people do not speak words of fear in the world, where we do not speak words that cause fear in others, or undermine, or abuse, or cause pain, or control. Language is being purified by light, and it is becoming infused with love and light. And once that occurs to a certain degree, language will start to feel different to our minds. Our brains will have a different experience of language, and we will see that our languages and the gift of language is a divine gift that connects us with part of our very nature as beings and co-creators with the One. There are a lot of spiritual forces that are coming into play in the world. And it is for each of us to begin to unplug from the things that we go to as distractions, to notice the degree to which we distract ourselves, whether it is with sense gratification in some form, whether we distract ourselves with video games, with social media too much, whether we distract ourselves with things that are designed to take us out of the presence of our souls and the way in which our souls are seeking to ground us more deeply into our bodies and to experience the magic and the wonder of what our nervous systems are actually designed to do. We were meant to be conduits. As these waves of love and light from source are activating alignment with our original divine blueprint, there are a lot of things that will be coming up inside of us. There's a great purging of impurities taking place. And we will all need each other in various ways to help each other go through this. This is not something that any one person can do alone. We need each other. We need to practice sacred listening. We need to learn how to listen to each other unconditionally and to be present to the being behind the words. And eventually, enough people will be highly attuned to the other levels of human consciousness that are emerging, that we will have an inborn knowledge awaken inside of us that so many of us came in with as children, but it was shut down in various ways. That inborn knowledge is the knowledge of how to embrace others into wholeness. We didn't have the strength to do it when we were children. We didn't have the right time frame for how some of these gifts of wholeness and oneness and the ability to hold other people in a field of energy, it wasn't time for that yet. And now it is time. Now it is opening up, and we are starting to open our chakras to discover that there is a field that has already been established in the world that is growing, that is fed and supported by our love of the field that unites us, so that we can practice extending that field to embrace others into the wholeness. And as we do that, eventually our ability to embrace individual human beings or groups of people with that wholeness, to hold the frequency of that wholeness and oneness as groups, as tribes, as emerging networks, eventually we will reach a point where we can embrace the whole worlds in that vibration, and in a very short period of time, purge out various elements of greed and disconnect and fear and corruption that remain. It's going to take time, but that is why we have the help of these interplaying guides, like these Native American master elders that are working with us now to train us into our ability to perform these kinds of healing ceremonies in the physical realm, so that we can continue the work and we can keep building the synergy and strengthening the divine embrace until the divine embrace is coming through us directly from source, embracing the world through each of our hearts, so that the whole world becomes whole through each of us. And that becomes part of our awakening experience. So I'm going to leave off with that. Just a little transmission that came through to kind of give us a little bit of the framework, the path that lies ahead, what we're connected to, where it's going, how we're going to get there. That's what's there for us.
And thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's just a sort of quick demonstration as well of just some of your ability to channel, and you sort of obviously conscious channeling there. You just letting it flow through you. But you do the obviously the deep trance channel as well. And like you said at the beginning of this, there's that just normally takes you a bit more just to get into that modality. One thing just before you go as well, which there's many things that we're going to have to come back in a future episode to talk about. One of them was obviously discernment as well, and I just thought we'd just leave on that just before we go.
Yeah.
What a subject to leave on as well. But for discernment for you, how do you? And I know it's changed over the years for you, or maybe it's become stronger for you. When it comes to discernment and channeling, how do you, use that?
Well, speak about this in a couple of different ways. First of all, discernment in channeling is something that everyone has to go through a process of their discernment increasing. When you really invoke the highest levels of angelic protection, and I always recommend people start with Archangel Michael as a trusted guide, and ask for the protection to help you move into discernment with the overriding presence of your guides, so that anything you do encounter that is a test of discernment, you've got your angelic frequency of guidance there to help you understand what a test of discernment is, what it looks like, and what that can offer you. Because people will have tests of discernment. I have had plenty of them, and my channel has evolved each time I have gone through a test of discernment. But there's also a lot of really good discernment that is available to people that have gone further down this path. It's why I am creating this summit for people that want to learn how to channel so they can benefit from the discernment of other people, sharing little tidbits of wisdom that are very key and can accelerate a person's process. Instead of taking 10 years to get that kind of discernment on your own, you can get it in an hour from people who have spent half their lives going through this kind of training. So that's the idea. Come to saryon.com. That's where we're going to be connecting people into this summit. But I want to say something else about discernment because we were talking off camera about just how many spiritual teachers there are out there that don't walk their talk. And one of the best ways that you can get discernment about that is from meeting people that are the real deal. They're very rare, but when you spend some time with the teachings of somebody who is at a very high level of humility and surrender and alignment with divine consciousness, and somebody who's passed so many of these tests that are still tripping other people up, it's very enlightening to have a reference point between somebody who does walk the talk of their enlightenment, and they're the same person on the stage as they are off the stage, so that you have something to compare and contrast when you're looking at other people that aren't there yet. So there are certainly some rare people out there. The one that I always recommend to people is the spiritual mentor that I've had in my life for a long time, which is Louis Dordenpree. You can go to louix.org, and there's a whole body of work there. You can find him on YouTube. I highly, highly recommend his teachings because they will take your discernment up to a much higher level. It's really one of the most profound gifts to have access to such clear and mystically and enlightened information, mystically aligned and Christed information coming in such a grounded way that makes the consciousness of enlightenment very approachable and attainable in terms of things that you can actually work on in your life and improve upon.
Yes, and I'll just say this as well, that I'm one who I said before that some of these, as we had the conversation off air, some of these teachers they don't live their teachings, but that's not to say as well that what they've had to say hasn't been so empowering and useful for people on their journey as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to add that, and also one other question as well. If obviously we everything's about channeling right now, but one question I've not asked you, which is so important, I feel, is that what is channeling to you?
To me, channeling is a process of pairing energies and sharing one's expression in the physical with the consciousness of a guide, a teacher, or a higher form of consciousness that is working with you in tandem to produce or express or transmit something that uplifts, empowers, supports, heals. For me, there's always an alignment with an intention to empower and heal and support and uplift. And every time I do channelings for groups of people, I always feel like my vibration is being lifted. I can actually feel the vibration of my body going up and the current of light increasing inside me. The more I have done this, the more I become attuned as a conduit, such that I can feel the conduit of my own body being used to empower and support and uplift the vibrations of people around me while I am in the channel. And then even after the guide moves out of phase with my expression and my full expression comes back, sometimes I'll still feel my vibration continuing to go up for some time after. It's like riding this current that's so beautiful. So to me, that's what channeling is, but it's actually a wide range of different modes of channeling that people use that I also use. I do trance channeling. I also channel fiction. I channeled this fiction book, Roya Sands and the Bridge Between Worlds. It's book one of a series that all contains channeled information. Some of it came through remote viewing. Some of it came through just directly channeling guides. And all of it came through a collaboration with different kinds of spiritual guides that helped me to create this whole world for people to experience as they're learning what the guides are teaching.
I just want to say thank you so much for the message that you gave to the audience there. Very empowering, very useful, and so needed right now. And I am thinking about setting up my own news network, a spiritual news network. It would be called the International Spiritual News Network, the ISNN, where we would look at the news from a deeper karmic perspective. So we'd look at the karmic reasons behind some of the news as well. And just having this short time with you, I'm like, I just know that you'd be a great, when you could do, you would be a great contributor towards that. So I just want to mention that on this interview as well. Yeah, because I think it's, that I feel is my calling. Beyond this talk show, what my real purpose is once I get my ass into gear, right, and
Right.
and actually put some of my my own, get my own healing done as well, and some of my things. That's my next thing, definitely. But just speaking to you, I could see you. When I'm speaking to you, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I could see him doing this, or this would work, and So yeah, I love what you're saying. I love the work you do. Just wanted to mention that, and your website is, one more time,
Saryon.com. That's SARYON.com. Everything is found there. I also do readings for people. So one of the things that I've been trained to do is to be able to identify and pair energies with and channel anyone's spiritual guides. So it doesn't matter if it's a being that I have met before or not. Sometimes it may be a ascended master guide or energy or an archangel that we are both familiar with because they're known beings. But in many cases, the guides that come through are a person's personal spiritual guide. And I'm there to make an introduction to a guide that they, might not have known the name of or, fully understood the energy of until the introduction is made. So it's one of the things I love doing in the sessions that I do.
Well, Saryon, I've completely enjoyed my time with you. We've covered lots and lots of stuff, and I just appreciate the diversity that you cover and the journey that you're taking as well, and sharing just a little bit of that with us, and the great work that you're doing as well with people's healing. I think that's just so empowering what you're doing as well. So thank you, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.